others who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, August 5th, 2026. Your readers today are
Larry Beenan
and Linda Ranella. Starting with the weather report. Very warm and humid today with times of clouds and sun, a high of 87. A stray thunderstorm early tonight, then a shower or two, a low of 69. A couple of showers and thunderstorm tomorrow, a high of 83 and a low of 67. Friday, humid with a thunderstorm, high of 82, low of 67. Saturday, a shower and thunderstorm, a high of 83, low of 66. Sunday, a thunderstorm around, high of 80, low of 66. Monday, some sun, high of 81, low of 66. Tuesday, mostly cloudy, high of 78 and low of 65. The pollen count today is moderate. Sunrise was at 6:11 a.m. and sunset is at 8:32 p.m. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Our opening story. Could Damon's Campus Rescue Squad aid UB bid? Student volunteers providing emergency medical services. Years ago, at her lifeguarding job, Brockport native Indigo Perdun witnessed a cardiac arrest. The experience, including watching the emergency responders in action, motivated her to learn about emergency medical services. So, as a student at Damon University in Amherst, Pardun joined the Damon Campus Rescue Squad, a student-run volunteer organization that provides emergency medical services on campus in the fall and spring semesters. I found that I love the chaos of pre-hospital care and just kind of having to walk in and get right into it, said Pardun, a member of Damon's physician assistant class of 2028 and a state-certified emergency medical technician. The concept of student-run university-based EMS organizations is getting fresh attention in Western New York as students at the University of Buffalo try to establish their own group. While that effort is early on, and UB said it has no plans at this time to use the student-run EMS service, the idea is far from unusual. For one, UB had its own student-run EMS Baird Point Ambulance Corps from the early 1980s until the late 1990s when the service ended amid liability concerns. Over the year, there has been occasional interest in restarting such an organization, most recently with efforts to start Royal Blue Medical Emergency Response Service. Other long-standing collegiate EMS teams in New York include RIT Ambulance near Rochester, Stony Brook Volunteer Ambulance Corps that serves Stony Brook University in Long Island, and Harper's Ferry Student Volunteer Ambulance Services at Binghamton University. All three student-run agencies have history that date to the late 70s, and all grew and evolved to include vehicles to transport patients. The Damon Campus Rescue Squad, or DCRS, is much smaller and younger, starting in 2018, under the Division of Student Affairs and furthering the university's focus on health sciences education. DCRS, which typically has 10 to 15 active members, is a basic life support first response agency, meaning it provides early medical attention or intervention, but doesn't transport student patients. Members respond to emergencies on foot, and they work regularly with Damon University Campus Safety, Twin City Ambulance, Snyder Fire, and the Amherst Police Department. Sometimes DCRS is the first agency on the scene, campus members responding to help other campus members. I think sometimes when it's a friendly face, it really bridges the gap because you never know who's going to show up. Outside agency-wise, said Shannon Hockwater, the DCRS advisor, a certified EMT and a professor in Damon Natural Sciences Department, to have somebody who you've at least seen their face when you're in an extremely upsetting situation, I think is a little bit of a savior. An effort in its infancy at UB. On a Thursday evening in early April, about 20 students gathered in a classroom on UB's North Campus. There, led by student Matthew Messina, president of Royal Blue, The students broke into teams and responded to mock scenarios, with one volunteer pretending to be intoxicated, another with a fake broken leg. Can you tell us your name? Do you know what day it is? Know where you are? One student asked the mock intoxicated patient. Later, Messina reviewed the campus map and quizzed fellow students on the best routes to respond to a scene. I think that's really what Royal Blue is trying to do, to deliver some meaningful experience and certainly be a positive impact on the university community, said Dr. Michael O'Brien, an emergency medicine professor at UB who got involved around March as a faculty advisor for the student group. As reported by the Spectrum in mid-April, UB said it does appreciate the enthusiasm and public health mission of Royal Blue, but the university has no plans to utilize a student-run EMS service. The breadth and complexity of UB's three-campus community is best served by existing local EMS providers, municipal first responders, and UB's highly trained police department, UB said. The university added that its police department with 60 officers is the first to respond to medical calls on UB's campuses with an average response time of 1 to 2 minutes. UB describes Royal Blue as an official UB student club, and its activities will focus on professional development. Going forward, O'Brien said he sees the club focusing on fostering interest in EMS among students, finding volunteer opportunities for them outside the university, and working to show UB the value of adding a student-run EMS agency to the existing framework of emergency service providers. For his part, O'Brien has been founding a member of 2 different collegiate EMS services that are still running at University of Illinois Chicago and Loyola University Chicago, and he got his start in EMS at Penn State University, which has a long-standing university ambulance service. I would categorize this as in its infancy, Bryden said of Royal Blue. But despite the university's statement that they're not looking to start one, I still think it's a very viable if we can approach the right way and just time things right. An amazing recruiting tool. Brian Broner, CEO of Twin City Ambulance, was a member of the student-run Baird Point Ambulance Corps in the mid-1990s. As a student, it was fantastic, an opportunity to get involved in EMS, serve the community, work with other students, work with the university, expand my network and reach, he said. Brunner said he is a supporter of the student-run EMS when it is done right. Among challenges that student-run EMS efforts confront, it can be hard to maintain operations when student leaders graduate, and at the same time it takes time and the right approach to build collaborative relationships with other responding agencies. When run properly, student-run EMS has the potential to help an industry struggling with workforce issues. As of 2022, there were about 33,000 certified and active EMS providers in New York State, a 17.5% decline from 2019, according to a 2024 state report. From the industry perspective, it's just an amazing recruiting tool, Bronner said. It brings people that are in higher education into EMS. Twin City, which provides ambulance services in Erie and Niagara counties, covers the Daven University campus and has worked regularly with the Daven Campus Rescue Squad since it started. Bronner said it has a positive relationship with Twin City and has hired several team members from Damon. I think the biggest thing is the level of student engagement, he said. It's the same idea with volunteer fire companies. It's members of the community serving their own community. It's students serving other communities, other students. Bronner said he has had several conversations over the years with students interested in restarting a student-run EMS organization at UB. Similarly, UB students visited Damon to talk to school leaders about Damon Campus Rescue Squad in 2019, said Carrie Spicer, Vice President for Student Affairs at Damon. DCRS response to calls. Damon Campus Rescue Squad isn't handling a huge volume of calls. The agency can get paged to a scene as few as 10 times a semester, often for incidents such as general illness, post-blood drive dizziness, or dislocated joints. The response to our Amherst campus is very quick from our external agencies, and then DCRS can really trim that down by a few minutes, and sometimes those few minutes really make a big difference, Spicer said. If a student responder is not available, DCRS also has faculty and staff who are credentialed and can respond, such as Hockwater and Alex Stowe, Associate Director of Undergraduate Admissions and a member of Williamsville Fire Department. DCRS handles the early intervention on the scene, gathering information and assessing the patient. So when Twin City arrives, DCRS can stand off the information and the ambulance can begin transporting the patient, keeping everything moving quickly. One call that sticks with Pardon: she responded to a call for a patient who wasn't feeling well. When Pardon arrived, the patient was almost unconscious and she started taking vitals and asking questions. When Snyder Fire arrived, Pardon heard someone tell her and DCRS to get out of the way and let Snyder get in there. And the guys from Snyder were like, "No, they're doing a great job," Pardon recalled. And they left because they have the same level of training and we were doing all the things that they were going to do. And when Pardon returns to her waterfront lifeguard job each summer, she takes her experience with DCRS and she teaches future lifeguards how to confidently walk into any situation and help a person until an ambulance arrives.
Thank
Linda?
you. Thank you, Larry. Sabres' success leads to a hike in ticket prices. The Buffalo Sabres have had their best start to selling single-game tickets in about a decade. The team sold 3 times more tickets during the first week of sales than it did last season, after significantly increasing its season ticket base and 10-game ticket plan purchases. This is the earliest individual tickets have ever gone on sale as the Sabres attempt to capitalize on the momentum caused by last season's playoff team and a type of ticket demand the team hasn't seen since before the 14th season playoff drought it broke earlier this year. The NHL regular season schedule for 26-27 was released July 16th, and about a week later the Sabres put single-game tickets on sale to the general public after a brief pre-sale window for season ticket holders. An approximately 8% ticket price increase has not had an effect on ticket sales, with the Sabres trending in the right direction as a team, refueling many fans' passion for hockey again in Western New York. When the schedule came out, we felt it was good for our fan base to get to single game tickets out there now, so they can take advantage of it and get the games that they wanted, said Jake Vernon, Chief Commercial Officer for the Sabres. As expected, we saw significant demand for single-game tickets, he added. We're seeing fans purchase earlier than ever before, and many of our marquee games are tracking well ahead of last season to this point. The team's October 3rd home opener against the Chicago Blackhawks has generated the highest demand so far and is close to being sold out. Other popular games on the schedule include 2 Thanksgiving week games, November 25th against the New York Rangers and November 27th against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Those games are sandwiched between a Buffalo Bills Thanksgiving night matchup with the Kansas City Chiefs, which makes for 3 days of sports bliss for Buffalo backers and an opportunity for fans returning home for the holiday to see their share of games. Another popular Sabres home game selling well is the December 26th game against the New Jersey Devils. Weekend dates and big divisional matchups are also doing well at the box office, and some are close to selling out, Vernon said. Season ticket prices went up by roughly 8% from last season, and the cost for single-game tickets followed suit. The game continues to use dynamic pricing, with ticket prices higher for weekend games and the more marquee matchups, and lower for less valued matchups and early week games. Games early in the season also continue to be among the more affordable tickets. While demand has never been higher, our priority has been balancing that demand with affordability, Vernon said. We've remained disciplined in our pricing strategy, and we need to make sure we're delivering a great value proposition for our fans. The Sabres sold out the final 18 games of the regular season and 7 more in the playoffs, but earlier in the season, with the NFL in full swing, individual game tickets may be harder to sell again. After winning the Atlantic Division, the Sabres earned their first series win in the postseason since its run to the Eastern Conference Final in 2007. Vernon said DeSabres will try to get more aggressive with promotions and group sales initiatives for early season games and lesser matchups to help continue drawing in fans. Early in the season, it is tougher, Vernon said. Normally, the season energy takes a little time to ramp up. The team also says it is once again investing in the fan experience, which likely means some notable upgrades around the arena are being worked on in the off-season. Over the past 2 off-seasons, the Sabres have spent millions of dollars to replace the arena roof, put up a new video board, and install an upgraded sound system. The team is also in preliminary lease discussions with Erie County, the city and state, that will likely include a request for public funds to help pay for significant investments needed around the 30-year-old arena. With the sale of 10 game ticket packages, the Sabres are now at the full season equivalent of over 13,500 season tickets sold for the 19,000-seat arena. That includes nearly 5,000 new season tickets as part of the significant growth from the season prior, when there were only around 9,000 season tickets equivalents sold. The 10-game plans have surpassed last year's sales by 30%. Based on the pace of sales, Vernon expects those packages to sell out in the next few weeks. We've had unprecedented demand really across every ticket product right now, he said. The Sabres decided against putting any zip code restrictions on single-game ticket sales for when the team plays against opponents with fans that travel well, such as the Montreal Canadiens, Toronto Maple Leafs, Detroit Red Wings, and the Penguins. Games against the Canadiens brought a sea of Habs red jerseys inside KeyBank Center, even as the Sabres were riding franchise-best regular season runs and playing in the second round of the playoffs for the first time in nearly 2 decades. Vernon said the Sabres have tried to be selective about who gets access to the tickets, and many seats to the more marquee games against the likes of Montreal are eaten up by the season ticket base. The team also restricted fans to being able to purchase 4 tickets per game. Not as many tickets made it to the open market, Vernon said. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. 10 nonprofits win access to county's stadium suite. Lottery held to choose groups awarded tickets to Bills game. Melinda Dubois, Executive Director of Mental Health Advocates of WNY, knows exactly how hard her staffers work. She wishes she had a way to show them how much they are appreciated. As of Tuesday afternoon, she does. The organization was one of 10 local nonprofit charitable organizations to win a lottery whose prize is access to Erie County's suite at Highmark Stadium for one Buffalo Bills game this season. The staff are phenomenal, Dubois said after the drawing in the office of County Executive Mark Poloncarz. The majority of our staff are really working in really difficult situations, and they deserve a lot more than we can give them. So I'm really thrilled we can help them to get to a game. Her agency will split the 16 seats with the Girl Scouts of WNY for the October 8th game against the New England Patriots, giving each group 8 tickets to divvy up how it sees fit. Dubois said she is considering an internal lottery to decide which of its 50 staff members get to attend, and could send some of the families they work with as well. Those groups were 2 of the 180 qualified applicants for the box seats. The 8 other winners are WNY Public Broadcasting Association, Specialized Early Childhood Center of WNY, Boys and Girls Club of Orchard Park, the Big Easy in Buffalo Incorporated, OLV Human Services, Gateway Longview Incorporated, Buffalo Architecture Incorporated, Habitat for Humanity, Buffalo. The groups learned of their good luck following a lottery-style press event in the Rath Building downtown. At the front of the room, Poloncarz stood in front of a podium and 2 spinning drums as he picked out folded envelopes with each winning organization's name on it. We wanted people to see how we did it in person, Poloncarz said. The media was invited, so there were no questions as to why an organization was chosen. It was chosen because of just dumb luck, a random draw from the drum. It is left up to the agencies to determine how they will use the tickets. Habitat for Humanity Buffalo plans to use its tickets to January's matchup against the Jets to recognize its donors, volunteers, and partners. Affordable homeownership is made possible through collaboration, and building those relationships is essential to our long-term success, the group wrote in its application for the tickets. 3 alternate charitable organizations were selected in case one of the chosen groups cannot attend. Should the Bills progress to the postseason, the alternate choices will use the suite for playoff games. While this is the first year the county has handed out tickets to the local organizations, Poloncarz said it won't be the last. He said a similar appreciation process will be held next year, and officials will work out any kinks they find in the first cycle. The 3 economic agencies were automatically granted seats when the county passed the policy. Poloncarz said the Erie County Industrial Development Agency, Visit Buffalo, and Empire State Development Corp. were chosen with the intent to give important economic development entities the opportunity to host business meetings that could benefit the county in the suite. I think it's important that we have an open process, but I also don't want to hurt our opportunity to bring in business, and that's the idea behind it, he said. The suite was granted to the county in exchange for the $250 million that contributed to the construction of the new $2.2 billion stadium. After the agreement was struck, county legislators began a lengthy debate over how to ensure the suite benefits the public and not a handful of local lawmakers. Groups who use the county suite will be required to submit a list naming all formal guests to the county legislature within 30 days of their attendance. While the policy prohibits its elected officials from attending any games for free in the suite, it doesn't prevent officials from making brief pit stops if they are already attending the game. During the preseason, the suite will be used by 8 different Erie County civil servants per game. The county received 865 individual applications for preseason games and announced the participants last week. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 9:22. Today in history, Wednesday, August 5th, 1861. Needing to pay for the Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Revenue Act, imposing the first federal income tax. It set a 3% tax on annual incomes over $800 and lasted 10 years. In 1921, KDKA-AM in Pittsburgh presented the first radio broadcast of a Major League Baseball game. From the bullpen, pitcher Jimmy Zinn led the first-place Pirates to a comeback victory over the Philadelphia Phillies. In 1926, Harry Houdini pulled off what would be his final public stunt. He stayed in an airtight 700-pound coffin underwater in New York City's Hotel Shelton for 91 minutes to beat a rival who performed the same act for an hour. After 88 minutes, Houdini wrote, "I commenced to see yellow lights and carefully watched myself not to go to sleep." In 2011, businesswoman Yingluck Shinawatra was elected Prime Minister of Thailand. She was the first woman to hold the post. In 2024, about 2 weeks after President Joe Biden suspended his re-election campaign following a widely criticized debate performance, Vice President Kamala Harris secured enough delegates to become the Democratic Party candidate. Harris was the first black woman and the first Asian American to become the major party's nominee for president. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. The local Buffalo News editorial, Taming the Adults. An outside advisor is a good step to address Buffalo School Board's chaos. Given the level of dysfunction on the Buffalo School Board, it's no surprise that State Education Commissioner Betty A. Rosa came to Buffalo to see it for herself. As reported by the News' Ben Sugimoto, Rosa arrived in town last Wednesday to gain perspective on a recent turmoil in the leadership of Buffalo Public Schools. There has been a lot to unpack, starting with the sudden resignation of Superintendent Pascal Mubunga on July 13th amid allegations of sexual harassment. A school board member, Louis Mookie Hawkins, faces related allegations from the same complaint, and a new claim was filed Monday by someone else, but remains an active member of the board. Then there compressed process of filing a vacant seat in a matter of hours. Again, the point is not whether Roscoe Henderson III is the best candidate for the seat. He is a retired Buffalo police investigator who also serves on boards of several arts organizations. The issue is that the entire process unfolded in what has become this board's typically opaque manner. Amid this adult-created chaos, there are some 29,000 students expected to start strong in a new school year that begins September 3rd. The question is whether the grown-ups leading the district can collaborate, cooperate, and communicate with the public in a way that will provide the high-quality education that these students deserve. Encouragingly, Education Commissioner Rosa has a plan. She announced that an advisor from the State Education Department would be assigned to Buffalo schools to aid Interim Superintendent Ebony Prophet Bullock in the transition period following Mubenga's sudden departure. She also said that she will assign teams to be in Buffalo to ensure that all the issues tied into opening school, are in place. This is much needed assistance from state education that Bullock and the entire district team of administrators should welcome. The stakes are always high in attempting to provide the highest quality education to students, and in this case, doing so at a time when the district has been grappling with some of its toughest challenges. Chief among them, debates over school closures and the future of the district's high-performing Leonardo da Vinci High School. Mubenga has about 2 months from unveiling a 5-year strategic plan for the district. It will be up to Bullock and her team to present a plan that leads the district during her interim term. In the meantime, the school board must provide sound policy reflecting the strong leadership and transparency the community expects. The board has already fallen short of basic standards of leadership by failing to adequately address Hawkins' continued service while he is under investigation. Then there is the appointment of Henderson on July 20th to finish the term of Cindy McEachin, who resigned from the North District seat in June following frustrations with board transparency and operations. On the day the board interviewed candidates for the seat, the Education Commissioner sent a memo to Evans Brown advising against filling it. Evans Brown insists that the board did not disregard or defy Rosa, who nonetheless said last week that she is disappointed the school board did not abide by her memo. Cutting through the noise, Rosa has taken concrete steps to stabilize the district by announcing an advisor to aid the interim superintendent after meeting with Assembly members John Rivera and Pat Burke, New York State Regent Keith B. Wiley, Bullock, and Evans Brown. An independent monitor who would be a higher level of state oversight of district and board operations is not out of the realm of possibility. Rosa said that she advised Evans Brown to work with state politicians toward implementing an independent monitor. For too long, Buffalo's school board has behaved as though no one was grading its performance. With the state now watching closely and the possibility of an independent monitor, that has changed. Buffalo students deserve adults who finally being held to the same standard expected of every classroom in the district. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. The editorial cartoons, the first one's by John Deering of Creator Syndicate. And it's a nighttime scene, and President Trump is lying in bed at the White House, and he's obviously afraid of what's going on, and he's pulled the sheets and the blankets up to his chin. And there's a Secret Service man holding the door open, and there's another Secret Service man laying on the floor, and he's holding a flashlight looking to see if there's anything under the bed. And the Secret Service man says to President Trump, "All clear, sir. James Comey's not under the bed." And the second cartoon is by Gary Varville, also of Creator Syndicate. And it shows an Iranian Shah holding a lamp like they have the genie coming out of the lamp, and it's labeled Radical Islam. But instead of having a genie coming out of the lamp, comes the death specter with a scythe, and he is death. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Everybody's column. Ignoring climate change won't make it go away. Justin Wilcox's complaints about New York State's efforts to transition from A fossil fuel energy system to a renewable one ignores a huge elephant: climate change. New York's power limitations are the problem. July 29th. 2025, 2024, and 2023 were the hottest years on record. We have known for decades that the leading cause of our rapidly heating planet is the burning of fossil fuels like petroleum and methane, which some PR genius renamed natural gas. The energy-intensive projects like the data centers that Wilcox touts as progress threaten to send us backwards. Too often they required new and very expensive fossil fuel or nuclear power plants while bringing few local jobs or local investments. Here in western New York, we are whipsawed by extreme weather in all seasons, as well as suffering from unprecedented wildfire smoke. Meanwhile, innovations in solar and battery technology mean dramatically lower costs and higher efficiency. Demand response, weatherization, geothermal, wind. These all move us in the right direction. These need to be our next generation industries if we are going to preserve our region for future generations. This from Susan Coogan of Warsaw.
Thank you, Larry. Ignoring climate change won't make it go away. No. Sorry, Larry. Today's young people see a
Deja vu all over again.
Yes. Today's young people see a terrible example. 3 of my grandchildren are 16, 18, and 20 years old. When this president came down the escalator and the Trump years began, they were 5, 7, and 9. So these young adults can hardly be expected to have any personal knowledge of America before the president and his compliant Congress and courts implemented his institutionalized nastiness, corruption, and unfair treatment of the rest of us. My grandchildren's generation cannot be expected to have learned decent, lawful behavior and tolerance from the people they had no say in choosing, but who now lead their government at all levels. I fear their well-meaning parents and grandparents will be unable to counterbalance the interests of the politicians and advertisers who control what they see and what they hear. For them, as well as for many of the rest of us, the new normal is an unfriendly, nasty place where business is rewarded for its selfishness and where science and even truth itself are ignored and devalued. I'm saddened for today's young, and I'm concerned that our nation has gone so far down this path already that they may never know firsthand what the promise of America once was. And this is written by John Nelson of Kenmore. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Residents should pitch in and help their town. Why does anybody want to be a public official? I've been studying local politics for a while, and this question lingers in my mind. I believe the answer is that they believe in their hearts that they can make a difference. I love my city, and I understand you have to have thick skin in order to properly survive. The money is not worth the abuse you must endure. I've watched the slander and lies targeted at some officials, short-sighted people who care more about their egos because they are trying to improve conditions in our city. The town of Niagara is a good example of how the supervisor and town council work together in order to bring about progress. They were criticized, but they proceeded to do the right thing, bring jobs, build a greater tax base, and now the town of Niagara stands on the brink of economic prosperity. It's about jobs and economic growth. Many people have forgotten that it isn't the government that is supposed to support you. It's the people who are supposed to support the government. Any leader must have a strong supporting cast to push their agenda. It is fundamental in order to move a city or town forward. Without it, we have constant bickering and finger-pointing. Many vocal citizens are against progress, and yet they still complain when there is a lack of progress. This from Joseph Shiro of Niagara Falls. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 10:34. Some opinion columns. This one is written by Froma Harrop of Creator Syndicate. Who's to blame when parents don't get their kids vaccinated? What is the death count under Donald Trump? We're not talking about loss of life in his war with Iran. We're not talking about natural deaths by aging or unpreventable diseases. We mean Americans who die because they refuse safe vaccines that Trump or his health secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., questions or discourages. A recent occurrence of death and suffering comes from the refusal by many parents to let doctors give their newborns a vitamin K shot. Infants are naturally deficient in vitamin K, which helps prevent blood clots and internal bleeding, which can be horrific. K is a vitamin, not a vaccine, but ill-informed parents have developed suspicion of anything delivered with a needle. Vitamin K shots were once routinely given, but now many parents refuse them. In 2024, an estimated 5.2% of American babies were not injected with vitamin K, up from 2.9% in 2017. At least 12 such babies have died, and far more have suffered permanent brain damage. Doctors believe the real numbers are far higher than reported. Who's to blame? The parents for not studying the matter, or a health department that has cast aspirations on accepted science? Jessica Kirk, a pediatric specialist at a Florida hospital, recalls trying to comfort a grieving parent. But what I could not bring myself to say to her was, "There's nothing you could have done." Falling vaccination rates are to blame for America's worst measles outbreak in more than 30 years. Parents are refusing the effective measles, mumps, and rubella, MMR, vaccine over the false claim that it causes autism. Trump is said to be hounding Bobby to look deeper for a link that 138 studies by real scientists could not find. Trump now insists that the shot be broken up into separate injections based on zero science. Several children injected with measles died last year when there were far fewer cases. Many more had to be hospitalized with serious complications. Trump makes us dizzy, complaining that he doesn't get credit for speeding up the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, then putting Bobby, a vaccine skeptic with a bizarre past, in charge of Health and Human Services. He gushes about having a Kennedy from the greatest political family in his administration. Trump never directly discouraged Americans from getting COVID shots. He said it would go away or that it was under control. Trump would not receive the vaccine before cameras. That gave Americans who suspected the vaccines posed dangers more reasons to avoid them. An estimated 250,000 Americans died unnecessarily from COVID by refusing to be vaccinated after the shots became widely available. Who's to blame? The first Trump administration, or people who didn't seek out expert advice to get vaccinated? Trump is allegedly unhappy with Bobby for not doing more to fan suspicion of vaccines. Really, RFK Jr. has done quite enough harm already, putting Americans' health at risk. Complicating matters for Trump are new findings from a friendly pollster that vaccine skepticism is highly unpopular with voters. In another survey, 80% of adults say they trusted their doctors most, while only 34% put their faith in Bobby. Why is Trump pushing doubt in mainstream science when he and his family reportedly get all the shots? Could it be fumes circulating in his 80-year-old head? Could it be a pleasurable jolt of power from persuading people to, in effect, gamble with their lives? That possibility is too grim to contemplate. Suffice it to say, though, the Trump administration is doing real harm, and some of it is costing American lives. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. From Allison Schrager. Your fourth grader should not worry about AI taking jobs. When I was in fourth grade, everyone in my class had grand ideas about what they wanted to be when they grew up. A professional basketball player, a firefighter, a professor. I grew up in a college town. A farmer. That was also in the country. I can't say anyone wanted to be a retirement economist. That came later for me. I recently spoke to a fourth grade teacher who told me her students say that when they grow up, they are worried there won't be any jobs. This is just an anecdote, but considering the persistent narrative that the job market is about to crater, it's not surprising. More than half of Americans fear AI will take their job. But should fourth graders worry? No one knows for certain what the future holds, and AI does things we never imagined machines could do. The same was true of the power boom, the power loom, and the combine harvester. Historically, technology did displace some jobs, but it also created many new ones, and they were safer, more pleasant, and better paying. The transition can be messy. In the early years of the Industrial Revolution, many small-scale artisans and farmers lost jobs, and for the first few decades of industrialization, wages did stagnate, though the population also grew as people lived longer. It took more than a century for the labor market to adapt. but it did. And it increased living standards and wealth. So far, AI-related job loss has been minimal. Hiring, especially for entry-level jobs, has slowed, but that may be due to other factors such as cooling labor markets or the prevalence of work from home. Even for jobs that AI would seem to do well, like translating or writing software, firms so far are hiring actual humans, and companies that adopt AI are hiring more, not less. A bad recession will be the real test. Companies looking to cut costs will be tempted to use AI instead of people. Then some jobs may disappear and hiring may be slower to recover. But downturns can also be great for innovation. AI is fueling a boom in self-employment because it reduces the prices of services that are required to start a business, such as web design and legal advice. For understandable reasons, the jobs that will be lost get all the attention. But AI may create new industries. As the economic historian Joel Mokyr once told me, imagine telling someone in 2010 that one day only 2% of the population would work in farming, but a lot of new jobs would be in cybersecurity. Of course, AI might be different than all other technologies, but that seems unlikely. Even if AI takes off quickly, a survey of super forecasters, economists, AI experts, and the general public found that unemployment and labor force participation won't be much different a few decades from now compared to in the past. Economists also expect new jobs and services, and that white and blue-collar jobs will still exist, though they might be different. Doomerism could be self-fulfilling. If children don't expect good jobs, they might think, why learn skills? Why bother doing the work to read, write, or solve math problems if AI can do it for you? The answer is no one knows what the jobs of the futures will be. But you'll stand a better chance in the labor market if you can be complement to AI and have excellent critical thinking skills. The future is one that will reward creativity, hard work, and adaptability. And if this technological revolution is anything like previous ones, the new jobs will be better than the old ones. Today's fourth graders have toys that their grandparents couldn't have imagined. They will probably have jobs like that too. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Some business and financial news. Certo proposes townhomes near Amazon warehouse site. For more than a century, the family-owned Certo Brothers Distributing Company was linked to the sale of beer, wine, and spirits in western New York until Wright's Beverage Distributing of Rochester bought the business in January 2020. Now the family is getting into the real estate development business as its Peter Certo Corporation seeks to put up 22 new market-rate townhomes for rent in Niagara County in hopes of capturing some of the expected demand from the new Amazon warehouse workforce in the town of Niagara, and it's asking for more than $2 million in tax breaks for the $7.1 million project, which is already getting pushback from residential neighbors upset about not only the tax breaks but also the disruptions of their street and intrusions on their privacy. They don't live in the town of Niagara. I do, said neighbor Jessica Hughes. Look out for the families that are already here. Peter Certo Corporation, led by President Joseph J. Certo and Anthony Certo, is proposing to construct two 11-unit townhome buildings on a pair of adjacent single-family properties that it owns at 5700 and 5710 Porter Road. The properties, which Certo already acquired, contain two homes of 1,056 and 728 square feet, respectively. Starting with 510 Porter, it would demolish the two structures one at a time, consolidate the two lots into a single 1.38 acre parcel, and then put up two identical 13,915 square foot buildings perpendicular to the street on a 300-foot deep property with parking in between them. Each of the buildings would feature 11 identical two-story townhome-style apartments with 2 bedrooms and 1.5 bathrooms in each 1,265 square foot unit in the same configuration with 2 parking spaces per unit. The homes would be leased at market rate rents with no plans to convert them to condominiums. Chris Lofstrand, Vice President of Peter Certo Corporation, said the company was looking at the highest and best use of that land noting that it's not exactly single-family residential with significant commercial stores across the street, train tracks down the street, and the I-90 and Packard Road intersection is just up the street. And Amazon is constructing its massive regional distribution center at 8995 Lockport Road, just 2 miles away, with more than 1,000 jobs expected. We have had plenty of conversations with the town of Niagara, Lofstrand said. We know they're hungry for market rate housing, so we see this as a better use of that property. The project includes $5.45 million for construction, $280,000 for furniture and fixtures, and $1.37 million in professional fees and soft costs. CERTA will finance it with a construction loan of $4.28 million and $2.85 million of its own money. It expects to create a single job for a maintenance manager, paying $60,000. It's asking the Niagara County Industrial Development Agency for a 10-year payment in lieu of taxes on the property that will save CERTA $1.73 million, as well as $240,342 in sales tax relief and a mortgage recording tax abatement of $32,093. And it says the project isn't feasible without help. NCIDA will consider the application for final approval on August 12th. The use of tax breaks to support market rates apartments is highly controversial because such projects aren't in jeopardy of moving out of state, don't create many new jobs, and aren't aimed at providing affordable housing. In this case, it's also not an adaptive reuse project. The Erie County Industrial Development Agency won't even consider such applications. But NCIDA officials argue that a rental apartment project in a suburb is still considered commercial in nature, qualifying it for assistance. And the NCIDA notes this development directly addresses the critical ongoing demand for housing in New York State and aligns with state-level economic development priorities, specifically Governor Kathy Hochul's Housing Compact to construct 800,000 new units statewide in 10 years. In a rare occurrence, neighbors turned out for an NCIDA public hearing on the project on July 28th, roundly criticizing it in a request for tax breaks. They complained of traffic congestion and degraded air quality because of all the additional vehicles for tenants and a very busy intersection nearby. It's awful there. They speed by. We have a hard time getting out of our driveway now, said Valerie DeMonico of Porter Road, who said she has lived in her house for 30 years and grew up on the street. I think it's a great idea if they want to build it somewhere else, but to put it there is a bad idea. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. From Business Briefly, M&T names Elma native to lead corporate affairs. M&T Bank has named local native Ryan Stanton as Chief Corporate Affairs Officer. Stanton will lead M&T's communications government affairs, public relations, and reputation management teams. He most recently served as managing director and head of global reputation and issues management at PwC. Stanton has over 2 decades of corporate reputation, public affairs, crisis management, and regulatory engagement service. I've spent my career helping organizations navigate high-stakes moments and build lasting trust with the clients and stakeholders, Stanton said in a statement. I'm honored to join M&T and help strengthen the bank's engagement with the communities it serves, he said. Stanton grew up in Elma and attended Iroquois High School.
Thank you, Larry. As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Adams, Emmett. Beecher, Kathleen M. Waters. Cacciatore, Eric. Gramza, Dr. Ronald R. Guglielmo, Arlene L. Ne Leon. Hessler, Nay Clark, Margaret N. Laverviere, Joseph Ritchie. Nyan Saw, Schwab, Dorothy Agnes. If you need further information on any of these names, give us a call at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Royal Stars, happy birthday for Wednesday, August 5th, 2026. You are brave, determined, and focused. You are independently investigative instead of accepting general conventional truth. This year, change will bring you increased personal freedom. let go of whatever holds you back. The stars show the kind of day you'll have. 5 dynamic, 4 positive, 3 average, 2 so-so, and 1 difficult. Aries, resist the urge to get tangled up in financial disagreements with your kids, a friend, or a group of or a romantic partner. Tonight, be patient. Taurus, 2 stars. Today the moon is in your sign. However, it's at odds with 2 other planets, which can encourage power struggles and disputes, especially with authority figures like parents, bosses, teachers, VIPs, and the police. Tonight, you're strong. Gemini, this is the classic day for an argument with relatives, siblings, neighbors, or daily contacts, or it might be road rage. Don't go there. Tonight, enjoy solitude. And did I say this is a 3-star day? Cancer, also 3 stars. You're never casual about money, which is why you might end up in a dispute with a friend, group, or financial institution. This tension will quickly blow over. Tonight, friendships. Leo, 2 stars. This is a tricky day because you are high vis, which means people notice you, and you might easily find yourself at odds with authority figures, spouses, partners, or close friends. Tonight, be modest. Virgo, 3 stars. Steer clear of controversial subjects today. Very likely they will escalate into a nasty confrontation. Tonight, explore. Libra, 3 stars. Parents might find themselves at odds with their kids today. Today? Today? At odds with your kids? I don't believe it. Anyway, likewise, romantic partners also might be angered. Tonight, check your finances. Scorpio, 2 stars. Steer clear of confrontations with partners, spouses, family members, and bosses today, because these clashes of egos could escalate quickly into something nasty. Tonight, cooperate. Sagittarius, 3 stars. Interactions at work, politics, religion, racial issues, plus appointments and errands that you're juggling today are all reasons you might be at odds with someone. But this doesn't have to happen. You have the power of choice. Tonight, work. Capricorn, 3 stars. Avoid money squabbles if you can, especially with your kids. Romantic partners and others, because this will only ruin your day. Tonight, share time with someone. Aquarius, 2 stars. Partners, spouses, close friends, and family members might be at odds with you today. If you enter the fray, there's no winning. Instead, take a breath, step back, sit this one out. Tomorrow is a delightful, practical, and productive day. Tonight, relax at home. Pisces, 3 stars. Although you will be tempted to respond in kind if you are attacked by others today, especially work colleagues or even an enemy, think of your own peace of mind. You matter. Don't let others say what others say get under your skin. Tonight, discussions. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Hints from Heloise. Don't leave your dryer unattended. Dear Heloise, this is a word of caution to never put things in a dryer and leave the house. Maybe you've done it in the past without problems, but I did and nearly burned my house down. A neighbor saw smoke coming from my home and called the fire department. The kitchen was damaged where the washer and dryer were located, but thankfully the rest of the house was okay. It was due to a problem with wiring. The thought of losing my whole house with all the things inside makes me want to cry. I made a foolish error. Don't make my mistake. From Terry. Faded laundry. Dear Heloise, my mother always hung her sheets and towels outside on a clothesline, and they smelled wonderful for days. We always got such a nice breeze because our house was on a hill and out in the country. Now that I'm married, I've been hanging up my sheets and clothes outside on sunny days, but I think the sun is bleaching them. My dark blue towels look terrible, as do my black jeans and dark blue sheets. Is it the sun or due to washing dark items in detergent? From Casey. Casey, it's more than likely the sun. You might want to try moving your clothesline to an area of the yard where there isn't direct sunlight and hang them outside every so often instead of every time you do the laundry. And that's from Heloise. Stained patio furniture. Dear Heloise, my white patio furniture was expensive, but I plan on keeping it for a long time. Recently, I noticed some darker areas on the furniture that my hose can't seem to get out. How do I get my patio furniture clean? From Linda. This is not me. Linda, you can mix a solution of 1/4 cup of bleach and 1 tablespoon of liquid dishwashing soap in a gallon of water. Be sure to put on rubber gloves to protect your hands. First, try a little on a test spot to see if the solution works. If it does, and it should, use a sponge and wipe down your patio furniture. Let it sit for a few moments while the bleach works on your furniture, then rinse with a hose. If you have a battery scrubber, you might want to use it on your furniture. From Heloise. Adios junk. Dear Heloise, we're moving across the country from California to North Carolina because of my husband's job. I went through this house of ours and realized I had a ton of junk I would never use again. I'd keep it thinking, someday I might need this, or it's too pretty to toss out. If you haven't worn it in a year, you probably never will. It's surprising how little we really need. We took 2 truckloads to Goodwill and 2 to a church charity shop. And I'm not done. I'm so happy to have less. It just feels good to lighten my house and my possessions. And that was from Harriet. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Court says EPA can't cancel grants for clean energy. A federal appeals court said the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency cannot freeze about $20 billion of clean energy grants awarded to several nonprofit groups, handing a defeat to the Trump administration. Tuesday's decision by a divided U.S. Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C. restored an April 2025 injunction against EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin's decision to terminate the grants which were awarded during the Biden administration with the goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. The money for so-called National Clean Investment Fund and Clean Communities Investment Accelerator entities was expected to help renewable energy products. And cyclosporiasis. Cisco, the biggest U.S. food distributor, stopped buying iceberg lettuce from Mexico due to the U.S. cyclosporiasis outbreak. CEO Kevin Hourican said Tuesday, the move shows how the largest U.S. outbreak of cyclosporiasis on record has forced adjustments to the food supply chain. And ethics probe. A U.S. Congressional Ethics Panel opened a probe Tuesday into Republican Representative Max Miller, who requested the investigation, saying he wanted to clear his name after his ex-wife accused him of abuse. Miller, who denied the allegations, is running for re-election in Ohio's 7th Congressional District. And from the Ukraine war, Russian forces attacked the Ukrainian capital Kiev with waves of ballistic missiles Wednesday, killing 1 person, injuring 12, and severely damaging buildings in several districts of the city's 3 million people. And wildfires. A man was arrested on suspicion of deliberately starting one of 3 fires that destroyed more than 700 houses and other buildings, forcing 64,000 people to evacuate in and around Spokane, Washington, the city hardest hit by wildfires sweeping the drought-stricken Pacific Northwest. The suspect, 37-year-old Spokane resident Aaron Farinacci, was jailed Monday on a $1 million bond.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, August 5th on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after the short break. Your readers today are
Larry Beenan
and Linda Ranella.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Linda Ranella.
and Larry Beeman.
Some local and regional news. Mayor says heavy police presence on Chippewa must end. In the week since Buffalo police began a crackdown on illegal partying and loitering in the Chippewa Entertainment District, violent incidents and chaos has decreased dramatically. But city officials say the additional enforcement has been costly and they are looking to move away from increased police presence as the main deterrent, instead looking toward physical improvements and the enforcement of existing laws to keep the peace on weekend nights on the city's main party strip. The city has already closed the street to vehicular traffic and contacted the owners of private lots where large gatherings of often underage people tailgating were taking place to let them know their need to make sure their lots are not being used for illegal activity or risk consequences from the city. Mayor Sean Ryan said Tuesday in a news conference Tuesday that while the past few weekends have remained peaceful and orderly, the city now needs to move into the next phase of enforcement to keep the streets safe. It's open containers, it's fights, it's disorderly conduct, Ryan said. But this has been a problem that's been accepted in the city of Buffalo as the norm for a long time. Ryan said the city regularly spends more than $1 million a year in extra costs to boost police presence in the district on weekends. Police Commissioner Erica Shields said that number has jumped to more than $60,000 each weekend during the recent enforcement blitz. The taxpayers of the city should not be expected to foot the bill for issues that are the responsibilities of private business owners, Ryan added. The days of the city of Buffalo spending an extra $1 million a year to keep Chippewa the way it is, those days are over, Ryan said. We don't have the resources for it, and if we did, we wouldn't spend it that way. The increased police presence on the street comes after a violent beginning to July in the district. Over the 4th of July weekend, department officials said the street was plagued by fights and unruly crowds. The following weekend brought more of the same. An 18-year-old who was arrested on assault and weapons possession charges is accused of shooting a 17-year-old in one of the privately owned parking lots that officials have pointed to as a source for many of the violence issues. Deputy Police Commissioner Craig Macy was captured on video shoving a woman to the ground during the chaos of that weekend, prompting calls for him to be suspended. He remains at work while an internal affairs investigation plays out. Shields has said she will wait to see the results of the investigation before making further comments on the incident, but pointed to the scene around Macy as he worked to break up a fight as an example of the conditions police have faced amid the often chaotic scenes at the beginning of the summer. The violence that my officers were facing was absolutely unacceptable, Shields said. The hostilities, the hate directed at them, and the amount of fighting amongst people who just came to loiter and pick fights was off the charts. Fillmore District Council member Mitchell Nowakowski, whose district includes Chippewa, has asked the city's law office to explore making the city accessible only to patrons above the legal drinking age of 21 on weekend nights. A preliminary plan he put forth would have age checks at entrances to the district, not just individual age checks at each establishment. He said he is also exploring built environmental improvements that would help crowd control and make it unnecessary to have dozens of police officers patrolling the street during busy hours. Not only is the increased police presence costly, it sends the wrong message to people visiting the district that it is an unsafe place that requires heavy policing, Nowakowski added. If that is what you're seeing, odds are that you are someone who wants to consume and patron those establishments. You're going to be frightened too, he said. Some business owners on the street have expressed concerns about more restrictive rules, fearing it would limit their pool of customers. But Chris Ring, a co-owner of the Chippewa Entertainment Venue Rec Room and the president of Chippewa Alliance, said many business owners and nearby residents support the enforcement of existing laws and regulations. The city's Green Code requires entertainment district businesses to get special use permits, which require a public hearing and a vote of the Common Council for approval for any event that allows for people under 21 to attend after 10 p.m. City officials say that code has not been regularly enforced in the past, but will be going forward. Obviously, the current police state that we have down there is not sustainable, Ring said. We all want to have a thriving entertainment district that complements the amount of investment that's been going on downtown with the hotels, the convention center, Shays redevelopment. We need this area to be safe, and we need to be thriving. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. School board member facing second sex harassment filing. School board member of Buffalo, Lewis Mookie Hawkins, is now named in 2 separate notices of claim and is the target of a separate investigation by a Buffalo-based law firm. A new notice of claim was filed Monday against Hawkins, this time by a different Buffalo Schools administrator who describes an unlawful and continuing course of sexual harassment, a sexually hostile work environment, quid pro quo sexual harassment, sex-based discrimination, and retaliation. Arlene Adams, a Buffalo Schools administrator who handles a federal grant intended to reduce community violence, initiated the legal action through attorneys Florisel Law Firm in New York City and the law offices of John V. Elmore Law, PC. The Buffalo School Board and Buffalo Schools are the defendants in the lawsuit, which requires a notice of claim. Excuse me. A pair of law firms also represented Antoinette Amos, Buffalo Schools Chief Equity and Governance Officer, who began legal action against former Superintendent Pasquale Mubunga and Hawkins on July 16th. Amos accused the former of sexual harassment and abuse of authority, and the latter of harassing, threatening, and retaliatory conduct. Mubunga resigned from his position July 13th, while Hawkins remains an active board member. Hawkins said last month he did not plan to resign and that he was looking forward to the truth coming out. Hawkins has continued in his full board duties in the 3 weeks since the first legal action, and in the roughly 9 weeks since the board's leadership team alerted its members to allegations against a board member. Adams' notice of claim cites 6 incidents involving Hawkins as examples of his misconduct, with dates ranging from March 30th to May 6th. The first 4 involve Hawkins' unannounced visits to Adams' office, including one instance where Hawkins inquired if Adams was interested in a cabinet position or a high-level promotion. After Adams declined, the legal claim reads, Hawkins persisted in questioning her refusal until the encounter was interrupted by a fire alarm. The legal filing mentions an earlier unannounced visit by Hawkins to Adams' office in which Hawkins did not initially introduce himself and sat down. When claimant did not engage him, he eventually stood, handed her his business card, and stated he wanted to know who she was and what she did, the filing read. Claimant was not aware at the time that Mr. Hawkins was a board member and was alarmed to learn that he was. One of the incidents mentioned in the notice occurred outside of the district city hall offices when Adams said she was at a bar/restaurant with friends. Hawkins offered to buy alcoholic drinks for the group, she said, which she declined. As Adams and a friend were leaving, Mr. Hawkins followed in the same direction where claimant's vehicle was parked, then grabbed claimant's car door and stated that he did not allow women to touch doors. Claimant pulled the door closed herself and stated, I got it, the filing reads. The filing also mentions Adams approached several supervisors with concerns about Hawkins' unannounced repeated visits. She gave examples when Rachel Fix Dominguez and Onandria Saunders intervened on her behalf and helped remove her from uncomfortable situations. But there is little detail about actions taken by higher-level supervisors. Assistant Superintendent Ornice Hill stated that Mr. Hawkins' frequent unannounced visits were inappropriate and that she would again raise the matter with Dr. Sharon Brown, who recommended that the claimant report the matter to Human Resources. The filing reads, Brown and Hill are among the top administrators in the district's student support services. Adams explained why she delayed taking action. She was concerned doing so could jeopardize approval for the Project Prevent federal grant, for which board action was required, and out of concern for her non-tenured employment status, concerns that were themselves a product of the power Mr. Hawkins held over her working conditions as a sitting board member, the notice reads. Hawkins did not reply to a message Tuesday morning seeking comment. Buffalo School Board President Kathy Evans Brown said the allegations in the new notice of claim are part of an external investigation, the results of which are expected soon. The board has taken such allegations seriously and will provide further comment at the appropriate time, Evans Brown said. The independent investigation was launched in late June by Hodson Russ LLP. Adams' role is to implement Project Prevent, for which the district receives $800,000 per year over a 5-year contract. According to the district's website, the effort focuses on 6 pilot schools and helps students affected by violence. Prior to this grant, Adams led Buffalo Schools' Project Aware, a mental health-based program. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Hood Taste of Buffalo postponed over lack of permits. A popular food festival was postponed over the weekend after city officials stopped the event from going forward because organizers lacked necessary permits, setting off a flurry of frustration with Mayor Sean Ryan's administration and the organizer in online comments. Excuse me. But Hood Taste of Buffalo organizer Julio Cannon said while having the event shut down was disappointing, it boils down to a misunderstanding. Cannon thought he didn't need a permit because the event was planned on a private lot on East Ferry across the street from True Bethel Baptist Church, the same location as last year. The only time anyone from the city had ever asked about a permit in the 7 years he has hosted the festival was in a year when it was held in a public park. And even that year, the event went on without permits, he said. Me personally, I never blamed him, Cannon said of Ryan. Cannon said the most frustrating part was that the event is long established as happening in the first weekend in August, and no one came to him until the day before to ask about his permits. With enough time, he could have worked to get the permits in place or rescheduled with plenty of time for vendors and patrons to adjust their plans. I was kind of upset because it came the day before, Cannon said. The 7th annual festival was set to take place on East Ferry Street, but the Buffalo Police Department took to Facebook on Friday to announce its intention to prevent the gathering. Ryan said there is an open invitation for event organizers to meet with the city to get proper permits in place, but has not yet heard from anyone. He said the Hood Taste of Buffalo is the kind of event the city wants to help support. There's rules in the city of Buffalo that haven't been followed before, Ryan said in an unrelated news conference. Following rules is going to become a change for the people of the city of Buffalo, but we don't want large events that are unknown to the city. That's why we have a permit process. Common Council member Zanetta Everhart noted her disappointment at the cancellation in a Facebook post, but remained committed to working with organizers to ensure the festival takes place. I personally have attended this event many times and I know what it means to the community, Everhart wrote. We need more events like this across the city of Buffalo, but we must do it the right way. Cannon said he has been working with Everhart on getting the right permits in place. In that process, the pair decided to put on a workshop to educate small business owners and vendors on the city's permitting process. They're going to be giving that information out, so this won't happen again, Cannon said. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Man held in killing of 4 is deemed competent for trial. The Cheektowaga man charged with killing 4 people on one day in June, including his wife and their 2 sons, has been found competent to stand trial. 2 doctors with the Erie County Department of Mental Health have concluded Salah Q. Muhammad is able to proceed with his case, in which he faces 7 counts of murder, prosecutors said in court on Tuesday. Muhammad, 29, has been accused of killing his wife, his 4- and 3-year-old sons, and a corner store worker on June 1st. Muhammad appeared before State Supreme Court Justice Deborah A. Henges. Attorneys and the judge agreed to return for the next court appearance in the case on September 3rd. Details about the doctor's findings were not presented during Tuesday's court appearance. A finding of competence to stand trial means a person charged with a crime is able to understand the charges and engage with their attorneys. Muhammad faces 3 counts of first-degree murder and 4 counts of second-degree murder in the deaths of his wife, Aisha Abdullah, his 2 sons, and Shakuri Mutana, who was shot in Arf's Deli on Grant Street in Black Rock. Abdullah, 26, and the 2 boys were found fatally shot in a home on Ellen Drive in Cheektowaga. Henges told prosecutors and defense attorneys to continue working on terms of an updated protective order, a court document that outlines restrictions on what items of potential evidence or other case information may be shared with Mohammed by his attorneys, as well as in what form it may be shared. Protective orders are put in place in order to protect witnesses in cases. Some protective orders prohibit defense attorneys from allowing people charged with crimes from keeping physical copies of the documents. Defendants may also not be allowed to learn the names of some witnesses until closer to their trial. Defense attorney Kelly Caperman, who represents Mohammed with attorney Sean Kelly, said in court that she and Kelly previously informed prosecutors that they could not reach an agreement under terms which they would consent with Mohammed be unable to retain any documents whatsoever. Defense attorneys submitted a draft protective order for prosecutors to review, Caperman said. Prosecutors drafted their own order, which they presented to Henges outside the presence of defense attorneys and which the judge signed. Assistant Erie County District Attorney Justin Caldwell, who was trying the case with ADA Frank Strano, said in court that defense attorneys have asked for further clarification on what he said they described as vague language in the current order. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 10:16. On to sports. Bills. Early in training camp, the hits are hard and the fists go flying. Ed Oliver had enough. No stranger to confrontation each summer when the Buffalo Bills strap on their shoulder pads. Oliver shoved off offensive lineman Alec Anderson as soon as the coach blew the whistle to signal the end of a play Tuesday morning at St. John Fisher University. As Anderson prepared to respond, he was grabbed from behind by outside linebacker Bradley Chubb. Fights among teammates are part of training camp. Admittedly, Chubb used to be at the center of such melees. 9 seasons into his NFL career, Chubb is no longer interested in trading punches. He'd rather be the voice of reason trying to quell tensions. You'd rather say chill than sick 'em, Chubb said after the Bills' first full padded practice in training camp. When you've had a team filled with sick 'em, that's a good thing. But at the end of the day, we've got to make sure we're channeling the energy in the right place. Fights happen at training camps across the NFL, and the most chaotic practices are typically the first in which teammates are tackling each other in pads. Bills' first-year coach Joe Brady chose to wait an extra day to have his players hit each other during team drills. The delay did not prevent frustrations from boiling over. Oliver shoving Anderson was a precursor to a hard-hitting physical practice. Rookie Caleb Ilams-Orr, an inside linebacker, angered his teammates on offense by hitting veteran Dalton Kincaid. Another scrum broke out shortly thereafter because rookie safety Yalan Kilgore crushed a receiver near the sideline. Highlights. DJ Moore is going to change how defenses try to stop Josh Allen and the Bills' offense. We saw another sign during an 11-on-11 team period when Allen faked a handoff and heaved the ball down deep downfield. Moore made an over-the-shoulder catch between 3 defensive backs to earn a loud round of applause from the crowd. Bills wide receiver Keon Coleman made a sensational one-handed catch while facing second-year cornerback Maxwell Harrison in a one-on-one drill. Kyle Allen, who's competing against Shane Boucher to be the Bills' backup quarterback, connected with the second-year wide receiver Stephen Gosnell on a deep throw to the sideline. During 11-11 period late in practice, safety Damar Hamlin broke up a pass that Allen threw to Moore. With pads fully on for team drills, Brady tested some of the running backs in his playbook. Ty Johnson may have delivered the run of the day, confusing defenders with a quick cut to the inside for a touchdown. Bills rookie cornerback Toriano Pride Jr., a 7th-round draft pick, broke up Boucher's deep pass to the end zone to Merkley Hardman Jr. Injury scare. Ray Davis' mission to be a dynamic kickoff returner for the second consecutive season and earn more opportunities as a running back was almost paused Tuesday when he suffered an apparent right ankle injury during the team drill. Davis did not need help walking from the field to the medical tent. General Manager and President of Football Operations Brandon Bean checked on Davis while athletic trainers tended to the injury. It didn't keep Davis out for long. A few minutes later, Davis returned to the field with his ankle wrapped and finished practice without any apparent limitations. Demetrius Flanagan-Foles, a veteran inside linebacker, also needed to be examined by athletic trainers. Recovering for the second practice in a row, second-year defensive tackle Deion Walker did not participate in team or individual drills. An athletic trainer worked with Walker on a side field during the latter. Afterwards, Walker told reporters that he's dealing with an injury to his right elbow and that he got fitted for an elbow brace that he plans to start wearing. His hope is to return to practice Thursday as a full participant. Walker's absence led to more opportunities for defensive tackles Darian Mathis and Zane Durant. And up next, the Bills return to the practice field in Pittsford at 8:30 a.m. on Thursday. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Bills note, Bass still ramping up for season. Pittsford. Yes, special teams coordinator Jeff Rogers clarified Tyler Bass has kicked. The Buffalo Bills kicker, who missed all of last season with a pelvis and groin injury, has not kicked on the main field of St. John Fisher University during open practice so far this training camp, but Rogers says it's part of a planned ramp-up, and there is no concern for the season. We've done some individual stuff, and we've done some team things so far, Rogers said. It hasn't worked out for us to be on the field quite yet. That'll happen later on this week, and then again at Highmark Stadium. But I don't think you skipped steps. It starts from ground zero. He's working with 2 new holders right now, and that's part of that comfort, so it's going to be a rep thing. But he looks like he did on tape, and everything's going well so far. While the Bills evaluate veteran punter Mitch Wishnowsky and rookie Tommy Doman Jr. holding the ball during Bass's kicks is part of the calculation. Rogers plans to keep rotating days rather than reps for the punters as they get into a rhythm with Bass. It's a rep thing, and when you have 2 guys working with him at the same time, which I've tried to do, is, at least so far, is today's Tommy's day to hold, today's Mitch's day to hold, and try not to get both guys involved as we can, Rogers said. That may change as time goes on, where we'll have to mix in, but I tried to let them solidify that part of it because they both do a good job. Bass has kicked in several stadiums, but this season he'll learn the intricacies of his new home. Rogers sees Saturday's return of the blue and red practice at Highmark Stadium a good part to that journey. We're fortunate we're going to be able to get in there on Saturday. We're going to get in there next week, and we're going to get in there a couple of times, and it'll be some times once we get back to Orchard Park. Maybe the specialists can go over there at certain times during the day and work on their craft. It's everybody. It's the returners, it's the kickers, it's the punters. An uneven competition. Bills wide receiver Khalil Shakir had to smile when he was asked about one-on-one drills at Tuesday's padded practice. The offense, running backs, receivers, and tight ends got the better of the Bills' defensive backs. Yeah, we kind of dog-walked them now, huh? Shakir said. No, that was a good one today. It's rough on them, man, especially in the slot, too. There's so much space, and it's not like there is a D-line rushing them or anything. Obviously, you try and keep it to running real routes as much as possible. Shakir knows there will be days that the defense wins, and for the overall health of the team, that give and take is good. But Tuesday's bouncing back after a rain-soaked Monday practice, it was the offense that clicked one-on-ones. I think that's the best part of practice, Shakir said. We get to compete, and it's really you versus the other person. Who's going to win? And again, it kind of goes hand in hand with setting that mentality too. Saying, I'm going to go out there and win. To be able to go out there and do one-on-one this way we did, and a lot showed. Bernard's new approach. Bills inside linebacker Terrell Bernard is still working his way back from an off-season ankle injury, but the captain is taking a different approach into how he handles listening to his body. Just the season last year, there were some things I was dealing with from the previous injuries that I was addressing them, but I wasn't putting it out there about how I really felt, Bernard said Tuesday. It kind of backfired a little bit. I wasn't healthy toward the end of the year. That's a hard pill to swallow. Bernard did not participate in team drills at the start of camp. but he has worked on his way onto the field for 7-on-7 or 11-on-11 drills. If he misses a day, don't panic. His relationships with head coach Joe Brady and defensive coordinator Jim Leonhard, paired with his newfound vulnerability, are allowing him to be more honest about what's happening. I think I had some communication with Joe Brady over the offseason and with Jim Leonhard, and just telling them the truth about what's going on, Bernard said. If there is a day where I don't feel right or something is not feeling right, I've got to be open and honest about it. Before, I would have just powered through and I wouldn't be super productive. That's something I've learned getting older. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Key figures within FIFA break with Infantino. Excuse me. The crisis triggered by FIFA President Gianni Infantino's abandoned proposal to sell off a stake in the World Cup deepened on Tuesday, with influential executives publicly distancing themselves from the project while scrambling to contain the damage. After 3 days of unprecedented civil war in the world of soccer administration last week, Infantino backed away from his plan to raise $7.2 billion from the new commercial rights body late on Friday night. The 56-year-old apologized for how the proposal, which would have brought private investment into the World Cup for the first time, has divided the game, but his once unassailable bastion of power at the top of the global governing body was shattered. FIFA Secretary General Mathis Grafston sent an internal message to staff lamenting the sad and reproachable series of events which led to the project being permanently abandoned, two sources said. We have all been thrown into the middle of a turmoil which is difficult to comprehend and accept, Grafston wrote in a letter without mentioning Infantino by name. But as Secretary General, I urge you to remain focused on what has always united us, serving football and serving our 211 member associations, hand in hand with all relevant stakeholders and in full compliance with the FIFA statutes and FIFA regulations. Individuals, unstable moments, and unfortunate episodes come and go. The institution, its mission, and its responsibility towards world football continue, and that is why we should always keep our professionalism, sense of perspective, and composure. Arsene Wenger, the Chief of Global Football Development at FIFA and technical advisor to soccer's rule-making body, IFAB, said he was not involved in the proposal and only learned about it through media reports. The decision to withdraw the project was absolutely necessary and beyond question, because I firmly believe in an independent FIFA that serves our game with commitment, transparency, and integrity, Wenger said in a statement. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Tokars seeks toughness in Bill's next QB. A sunny sky and warm weather appropriately welcomed the University of Buffalo's football team as the Bills opened preseason camp on Tuesday morning. This year's team is peppered with new faces on the roster and within the coaching staff. That may be why Lembo hired Tony Tokars as UB's new offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. 1 month before the Bills host Albany in the season opener on September 3rd at home, Tokars, who spent the last 6 seasons at Florida State and had previously worked with Lembo at Memphis in 2019, had the attention of his quarterbacks whenever he spoke during UB's helmet and no pads practice Tuesday. All 5 quarterbacks were president, seniors Mason Cumbie and Wingate transfer Elijah Holmes, sophomore Jason Wright, and freshman Jake Forberger and Coran McNeil. Tokars, himself a former quarterback at Worcester, Massachusetts State, said each of his quarterbacks is unique, and he looks for in a good quarterback is physical, mental, and emotional toughness, which naturally translates to leadership. The cool thing about the room is that we have right now, they're all a little bit different, a little bit unique, both personality-wise and the way they play, Tokars said. So it's a fun challenge as a coach, just figuring out how to build schemes around them at best, because ultimately I think that's what good coaches do. Josiah Gatherings, a 6-year receiver, said he has been impressed with Tokars. I haven't even seen it in season yet, but I know for sure Tokars is the best offensive coordinator I've seen in my 5 years in college so far, Gatherings said. It was a noteworthy comment from Gathers, who played for 2 years at Akron and one at UConn before transferring to Buffalo ahead of last season. Lumbo and then coordinator Dave Patanuri had a mutual parting of ways after last year when the Bills finished 5th in the MAC in scoring and struggled to move the ball later in the season. Florida State, meanwhile, bounced back on offense last season after a putrid showing the year before. The Seminoles were all but lethal with head coach Mike Norvell calling plays and quarterback John Travis leading the huddle. After a disastrous 2024 in which Florida State finished 132nd in total offense and went 2-10 overall, the Seminoles rebounded. Although they only finished 5-7, their offense was number 6 in the nation, averaging 421 yards per game. And there was no timetable on quarterback. During a past press conference Tuesday, Lembo said there's no timetable on choosing starting quarterback. He did compliment how well all 5 players support each other. Lembo even mentioned the possibility of using 2 quarterbacks, like when Wright spelled Gunnar Gray last season after number 1 quarterback Daquan Robertson was injured. Lembo and Tokarz both worked under Coach Norvell at Memphis in 2019. Tokarz followed Norvell to FSU, where he recently was the quarterback's coach. Lembo has noticed the similarities in Tokarz and Norvell's offenses. Tokarz has been successful quarterbacks in recent years. In 2013, Travis recorded more than 3,000 total yards and accounted for 27 total touchdowns at Florida State before he was drafted by the Jets. In Tokarz, looking for someone similar to Travis in Buffalo, I think a good coach always adapts to the skill sets of those players that he has, and you are certainly leaning back on those past experiences, Lembo said. But we're constantly evolving and adapting and adjusting, and so there's a give and take, right? Tokarz spoke about the importance of sustaining drives and protecting the football this fall, some things last year's offense did not do well. UB lost 22 turnovers and forced just 15 in 2025. Perhaps familiarity with offensive line coach Cooper Williams will help. Williams arrived from FSU with Tokarz, and he previously worked with Lembo at Memphis. Spring cleaning. Here's what some of the Bulls said about Tokarz during spring ball in March and April. James McNeil Jr. He brought a totally new offense, and I love it. He brings in a sense of competitiveness, a sense of urgency to get better and improve, especially with being with a new team and new players coming in. Overall, I really respect him. Alex Henger. Coach Tokarz brings the juice. Jason Wright. He's definitely a hard coach on us, but I feel like it's also important if you want to be good. I feel like he does a great job breaking things down for us and explaining it to where it makes sense. And like I said, he's hard on us, so he expects great things, and you will get great things out of us. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 10:32. Asking Eric. Married ex-boyfriend is still trying to make contact. Dear Eric, my married ex-boyfriend from more than 15 years ago is still in love with me. Through the grapevine, I have heard he still talks about me and even tries to bump into me in public. He is always asking about my whereabouts. I feel very badly for his wife. If she knows about this, it certainly must be straining her marriage. If she's in the dark, surely. I hope someone will enlighten her, and perhaps she can get him to knock it off. I'm perturbed. I haven't thought of this person in 15 years and effortlessly moved on without a second thought. How can others politely encourage him to get over the past and start fully living in the present from accidental long-term love spell? Dear Accidental, this sounds less like love and more like behavior that verges on stalking, if not fully tipping over into it. It's concerning and it needs to stop. People who are in contact with him can tell him as much. Your ex doesn't want to be in contact with you, and the things that you're doing are inappropriate. You need to stop right now before this gets worse. There's no need to be polite about this admonition. If he's having trouble letting you go 15 years later, his recourse is not bumping into you in public. It's talking to a therapist about acknowledging the end of the relationship and figuring out why he's acting the way he's acting. None of this is your job to fix or address. However, if you're concerned with or uncomfortable about what he's doing, don't hesitate to talk to the authorities about it. They may not be able to act on things you've already done or that you've heard through the grapevine, but they can give you guidance on how to keep yourself safe and what to do if he does try to make contact. Dear Eric, Recently, I had open heart surgery, which, although successful, necessitated several trips by ambulance back to the hospital from my apartment in a condominium building. There are only 46 units in the building, but it seems that every owner knows all the details of my operation and related illnesses. I know this as I am questioned as to my health by each person I encounter. What is your suggestion of a response after dozens of well-meaning inquiries every day from impatient patient? Dear patient, well, I'm sorry about your medical trials, but I'm glad surgery was successful. Even well-meaning inquiries can get annoying, especially if you don't want to be reminded of the stress and trauma and don't want to get into your medical history with everyone in your building. It's fine to say, thanks for your concern. I'm doing much better. If it's all the same to you, I really don't want to talk about it. These inquiries aren't going to last forever. With 46 units, eventually everyone who is concerned will have asked, but it may take a little while for word to get out. So you may have to endure a few more questions, but you're under no obligation to answer. A polite thanks for their thoughts and a redirect will suffice. Dear Eric, my wife and I do our own laundry. Almost every time I want to wash my clothes, I open a washer and see what clothes. Sometimes my wife might be home at the time, sometimes she might be out. The clothes might have been there for several days, in which case my wife would want to rewash them, or they might have been there for only a few hours, in which case they should be headed for the dryer. But some ladies' clothes cannot go into the dryer, easy for women to separate, but less so for men to distinguish. So do I rewash the clothes, or do I try to separate the delicates and put the rest in the dryer, or do I just quickly do my laundry and put the wet clothes back in the washer where she's none the wiser from doing my laundry is enough? Dear Laundry, the easiest course of action might be to ask your wife what she'd like you to do in this situation. This can open up a conversation about your shared laundry chores and how you can both better share the laundry room. She may not realize that she's leaving laundry and impeding you, or she may appreciate a gentle nudge. This could be an issue of forgetfulness, and she might appreciate your help. One long-term solution might be letting her know in advance that you plan to do your laundry on a certain day or time. You could do that through conversations or on a shared calendar. This reminder might better set her up to finish the task she started. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Free speech vow by Trump not seen in judges' rulings. Washington. President Trump repeatedly campaigned for his second term as a champion of free expression, vowing in a January 2025 inaugural address to stop what he described as years of government censorship. Since then, a wave of court rulings has concluded his administration has done the opposite. Reuters identified 75 rulings by federal judges finding Trump's government infringed on First Amendment rights, including freedoms of speech, religion, and the press. The unprecedented pushback on constitutional grounds has included repeated findings that the administration chilled or squelched the speech of citizens and groups opposing the Republicans' agenda. The president's palpable misunderstanding that the government simply cannot seek retribution for speech he disdains poses a great threat to America's freedom of speech. Boston-based U.S. District Judge William Young wrote, "The judge, appointed by Republican President Ronald Reagan, ruled in September that the administration illegally detained, deported, and revoked visas of foreign students and faculty because of their pro-Palestinian advocacy. Other judges found federal agencies terminated grants awarded to universities, including Harvard, for refusing to align with its ideological agenda, retaliated against law firms based on their legal advocacy, and used excessive force at protests. Trump administration officials have repeatedly called federal judges ruling against them activists who are interfering with the president's executive authority. White House spokeswoman Abigail Jackson criticized the First Amendment rulings in a statement, saying the federal judiciary has repeatedly endangered and obstructed the election choices of the American people with its unlawful rulings. Losing streak. The 75 cases that produced lower court rulings against the Trump administration were among 93 total cases during his second term in which judges addressed First Amendment arguments, Reuters found. Trump's losing streak mostly came from judges appointed by Democratic presidents, but Republican appointees delivered decisions in 10 cases. During Democratic President Joe Biden's term, Reuters identified just 27 cases in which lower court judges weighed First Amendment challenges to his agenda. Judges ruled against his administration in 13 of those. Most of the lower court rulings against the Biden administration involved its vaccine mandates, which were challenged on religious freedom grounds. Reuters tallied the First Amendment cases by searching federal court records and Westlaw, a legal research service. Both Reuters and Westlaw are owned by Thomson Reuters. When similar lawsuits were consolidated by a court or when a judge issued multiple rulings in the same lawsuit, Reuters counted them as one case. The review focused on civil lawsuits filed against the Trump administration and excluded cases by self-represented litigants. The lawsuits were frequently filed by Trump's ideological foes or by media organizations such as when the New York Times or Associated Press asked judges to halt restrictions on their ability to cover the White House or the Pentagon. The AP and the New York Times won at lower court level, though some of the rulings are on hold pending appeal. The Trump administration launched appeals in about two-thirds of the cases. It chose not to challenge rulings that, for instance, prevented it from interfering with what academics can discuss in classrooms and from slashing long-standing grants awarded to legal and medical organizations that oppose the administration's agenda. In appeals of 15 of the 75 rulings that went against Trump, his administration was successfully persuaded courts either to put a district court judge's First Amendment ruling on hold or to overturn it entirely. In significant victories for his administration, two appeals courts this year overturned lower court rulings that had led to the release of pro-Palestinian campus activists who had attended Columbia University, Mohammed Khalil and Mohsen Mouadawi. The appellate judges found the lower courts had no jurisdiction to hear those cases without ruling on the lawsuit's merits. Khalil's lawyers have said he plans to appeal to the Supreme Court. In one appeal, the administration did win on the merits. The San Francisco 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in February overturned a ruling that had blocked the Trump administration from stripping thousands of federal workers of the ability to engage in union bargaining with U.S. agencies. The union argued that Trump took the action in order to retaliate against them, challenging his administration policies in violation of the First Amendment. But a three-judge panel said Trump would have taken the same action whether or not he intended to punish unions for their advocacy. Other appeals courts have been less receptive. In May, the Ninth Circuit Court agreed with a lower court judge that terminating federal grants awarded to the University of California's researchers as part of Trump's anti-DEI push constituted viewpoint discrimination. Railing against censorship. Trump rode to his second-term win after railing against the online censorship regime that he said the Biden administration imposed when it required media companies to suppress alleged misinformation during the COVID-19 pandemic and after the 2020 election. Trump echoed themes from his first presidential campaign, including opposition to what he called cancel culture, as some conservatives complained that social and professional pressures discouraged the expression of their political views. Hours after his 2025 inauguration, Trump signed an executive order titled Restoring Freedom of Speech and Ending Federal Censorship, which directed no federal agency or employee would unconstitutionally abridge Americans' speech rights. Critics say that promise was almost immediately undercut by a flurry of other executive orders and policies seeking to extract retribution against foes or targeting viewpoints the president opposed. Among those early orders were those directing an end to federal funding of his administration deemed as supporting gender ideology or diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, two subjects at the heart of many of the lawsuits alleging First Amendment violations by the administration. Timothy Zick, a professor at William & Mary Law School and author of a book titled Trump 2.0 Executive Power and the First Amendment, said no president has taken such sweeping action to suppress speech since President Woodrow Wilson oversaw the thousands of deportations and arrests during the first Red Scare, a period of anti-communism and anti-immigrant fervor. At the time, Zick said, court precedents were far less clear on whether the First Amendment protects speech critical of the government. Trump is operating in this situation where the First Amendment boundaries are very clear, he said. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Is our food supply getting less safe? What experts say. This is an article by PolitiFact. Eggs are contaminated with salmonella. Frozen berries have been linked to an E. coli outbreak. Iceberg lettuce and who knows what else might give you explosive diarrhea. Some people have endured the barrage of frightening food news with dark humor. So the bread has glass in it. The lettuce has diarrhea bacteria, and the eggs have salmonella, wrote one Facebook user, poking at recalls of Pillsbury bread rolls for possible glass contamination and iceberg lettuce for cyclospora contamination. At this point, grocery shopping is just an overpriced episode of Fear Factor. The jokes can be funny, but the unanswered question behind them is not, is our food becoming less safe? The U.S. food supply is among the safest in the world, said Stephen Mandernach, the Association of Food and Drug Officials Executive Director. It's always been among the safest in the world. I see nothing that has changed. But it's notoriously difficult to answer in real time whether our food is getting less safe, food experts say. Most expect the Trump administration's cut to federal, state, and local public health entities to weaken the nation's food safety guardrails in the long run. Whether that is playing out in the short term is less clear. Here's what we've learned from food safety experts and from diving into the data. The cyclosporosis situation doesn't prove food safety is rapidly declining. Yes, record-breaking numbers of domestically obtained cyclosporosis cases recorded in 45 states have heightened food safety concerns. But cyclosporosis outbreaks are difficult to catch quickly, and the time it took for public health officials to identify a link between at least one product and the summer's rising cyclosporosis cases was right on schedule with what we've seen with other cyclospora outbreaks, Mandernach said. If anything, maybe a tiny bit earlier than normal. That suggests the U.S. surveillance system is working, he said. Plus, previous cyclosporosis outbreaks are likely undercounted, he said, because testing accuracy has improved in the past 5 years. Cyclosporosis outbreaks vary from year to year, but during some seasons, multiple failures cause big outbreaks, said Don Schaffner, a Rutgers University food science specialist. I don't know that we have a perfect storm this year, but hopefully we will learn something more about why this particular outbreak was so bad, he said July 22nd. Mandernach said this year's uptick does signal that the U.S. hasn't invested enough in cyclospora research and prevention in the past 2 decades, but it's not a sign that food is getting less safe. However, if health officials never determine what went wrong to cause this record-breaking cyclosporosis season, that could be cause for concern, he said. Summer is when foodborne illness is more common and gets more media attention. More foodborne illnesses happen in summer. It's hot, Mandernach says. Refrigeration sometimes fails. It's also when pathogens like cyclospora and salmonella are most common. Increased news coverage makes people pay closer attention to food safety issues and notice subsequent headlines about other recalls for pathogens or other contaminants. To really know if food is being less safe, it's important to analyze cases of foodborne illness, yet getting difficult and complete data is difficult. Historically, the best data on foodborne disease trends came from the FoodNet program, a collaboration between the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and 10 state health departments. Its most recent data is from 2024, and it showed that the incidence of infections acquired in the U.S. were rising for Shigella, Shiga toxin-producing E. coli, that's STEC, Vibrio, and Yersinia. For years, FoodNet participants reported data on 8 pathogens, including Cyclospora, but in July 2025, the Trump administration made it optional to report data for Cyclospora and 5 other pathogens. Based on the data made public about the FDA's Coordinated Outbreak Response and Evaluation Response Teams, that's CORE, investigations into foodborne outbreaks, we're seeing slightly more outbreak investigations this year than before. This data doesn't include all investigations into outbreaks. It includes many multi-state outbreak investigations that were assigned to a core team, but that's a relatively small portion of the total outbreaks that occur, said Rutgers University epidemiologist Craig Hedberg. Available food and beverage recall data from the FDA and shows the number of recalls in 2026 is on pace with recent years, at least so far. Data from the USDA's Food Safety and Inspection Service shows that in 2025, the U.S. recorded a 10-year high total of pounds of recalled meat, poultry, and egg products. From 2015 to 2025, Food Safety and Inspection Services reported that manufacturers recalled an average of about 23.2 million pounds of meat, poultry, and egg products. The USDA's website recall data shows that in 2026, manufacturers have already recalled over 37 million pounds of these products. Even combined, this data doesn't tell a comprehensive food safety story. It's overly simplistic to view increasing outbreak investigations or recalls as proof that the system is getting worse. Upticks in investigations and recalls could be a sign that more issues are being caught, said Sarah Sorcher, the Center for Science in the Public Interest Director of Regulatory Affairs. The Cyclospora situation aside, other impacts are clear. In 2025, American inspections of foreign food facilities dropped to historic lows because of the cuts, Sorcher said. The administration has also deprioritized criminal enforcement for violating regulations, which might mean companies are less motivated to comply. She pointed to a stalled Boar's Head investigation and the halted prosecution of Abbott Nutrition as examples. Future food safety is also uncertain, experts warned. Scaling back FoodNet's pathogen surveillance will undermine future efforts to monitor trends in foodborne illness, Hedberg said. Sorcher said the FDA, CDC, and state and local public health agencies are losing qualified experts to early retirement and struggling to maintain qualified staff to inspect food and solve outbreaks. FDA and USDA have also dissolved advisory committees and deprioritized enforcement and regulation, she said. Long term, this will have an impact on the safety of food as standards deteriorate. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. From the Political Notebook, Buttigieg is inclined to run for president. Indianapolis, Pete Buttigieg, the former South Bend mayor and U.S. Transportation Secretary in the Biden administration, is leaning towards running for president in 2028, he said on a podcast Monday. But the Democrat is far from making any promises, only admitting that he's more inclined to run than not in a conversation with British entrepreneur Stephen Bartlett on his Diary of a CEO podcast. Buttigieg told Bartlett that whenever he considers running for office, he asks himself if his skills are uniquely needed for the role at the specific moment. It's the same calculus he used when running for South Bend mayor and for president in 2020. After an impressive performance in the Iowa caucuses, Buttigieg lost the primary to Joe Biden, who went on to be president. But after having children, Buttigieg said he has more to weigh. The comments come just after Buttigieg topped the list of Democratic presidential contenders in an Emerson College poll. California Governor Gavin Newsom, U.S. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and U.S. Senator Jon Ossoff trailed close behind in the poll, while U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Vice President J.D. Vance were neck and neck on the GOP side. While Buttigieg may check a lot of boxes for the average Democratic voter, he's performed poorly in polls of black voters, a key constituency in which President Trump has made significant inroads. Buttigieg said he also has grown increasingly concerned with the rising tide of political violence, which he reflected on when revealing that his family was targeted by a false child welfare report in June. And Trump approves FEMA relief for Spokane fires. Early disaster assistance for those affected by the Spokane wildfires was made available Tuesday by the Federal Emergency Management Agency. President Trump approved an emergency declaration for Washington state authorizing FEMA to coordinate all federal disaster relief efforts and use its resource to alleviate the impact of the emergency, the agency said in a news release. Under the emergency declaration, the federal government would take on 75% of eligible costs. The funding is available for Chelan, Ferry, Okanogan, Spokane, Stevens, and Yakima counties in the Confederated Tribes and Bands of the Yakima Nation, Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation, and Spokane Tribe of Indians. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, August 5th, 2026. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. Excuse me, I got to sneeze here. We read the Buffalo News live on Wednesday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Linda Ranella.
and Larry Beenan. Thank you for listening, and please continue to stay safe and avoid sneezing.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability